As we continue to navigate conflict, develop some skills that we can use with people, where we're headed now is this idea of using what's called a visual paragraph. And the reason we use a visual paragraph, well, there are a couple of reasons. Number one, we use a visual paragraph because it helps organize information for people so that we can keep ideas separate from one another. The other thing that's useful about a visual paragraph is that you can use it to separate a positive attribute from a negative attribute, much like going visual. The other reason we use a visual paragraph is that it accelerates learning and helps develop memory by decreasing the amount of time it takes to transfer something from short-term memory to long-term memory. So the visual paragraph, I learned it from Bob Garmson. It's the first time I saw it. A couple of other people use it. Michael Grinder is one of them too. And it's built on this idea that locations help people with memory. You know, we have a little Garmin inside our brain, and that Garmin sort of is part of our memories. We remember where things happened, and we can go to those locations and have the experience of what the original experience was. Sort of like going to Yosemite one year, having a great time, and then going back a year later and reliving that experience. So our brain does that. So here's what a visual paragraph might look like. Thanks for coming today. Today what we're going to talk about is leadership, and there's three elements that we're going to talk about in leadership that are critical in understanding how we can be of greater influence with people. Number one is this idea of being principle-based and having principles that are heavily grounded in virtue, that are rock solid about making good choices, making choices that are ethical and that are appropriate. Number two, after we look at the principle base, the second is this idea of influence. How can we use leadership as an influence to be able to get people to do things that they might not otherwise do? Get them to do things that are going to fundamentally challenge not only knowledge and skills, they're also going to challenge beliefs and values. Number three, and this is probably the most important. After we look at the idea of principles, we look at the idea of influence, this third element is a mutually beneficial relationship. It's something that's going to be a positive for both people. So those three things are what make up leadership that we're going to be talking about today. Now that's an example of a positive idea along the idea of leadership. We can use the visual paragraph for challenges. So for instance, what you might do in practice on that is you introduce something you're going to talk to the group about. Maybe it's a budget issue. Maybe it's student achievement. Maybe it's scheduling. Who knows? You do. It's the challenges you have. What you might do is you introduce a topic and say, you know, we're going to be mentioning 3 things today, or you're going to be mentioning 2 things today, whatever is appropriate. Put one of them here. Talk about it there. Talk about whatever maybe that issue is, what the elements of that issue is. And then you freeze, count 3, 2, 1 in your mind, drop the nonverbal, drop the eyes, come to the next location, and pop up with some other riff. And in this case, you might have solutions over here. So you might have problems there, solutions here. You're just creating space and location so you can separate issues from solutions, or one issue from another issue, whatever it is that you're trying to get across in working with people to help keep the ideas clear in their minds. So that's where the visual paragraph can be very useful in navigating conflict.